Welcome to Leadership, the secret sauce, where extraordinary coaches and leaders reveal what makes them exceptional. We're your hosts, Dave Lipski and Matt Dodson. Together, let's discover our guest's secret sauce. Today's episode is brought to you by Character Matters Coaching and Consulting. At Character Matters, we believe great leadership isn't just about results. It's about who you become along the way. From career transitions to team building, we help leaders unlock clarity, build resilience, and lead authentically. Because when character grows, impact follows. Visit charactermatterscoaching.com. Today's episode is supported completely unofficially by a community we deeply believe in, the International Coaching Federation's Coaching in Organizations. If you're building or leading an internal coaching program, this is where your people find their people. It's a space to swap real stories, sharpen your craft, and stay connected to what's emerging in our field. If you haven't joined yet, take a moment to sign up and plug into the conversations shaping the future of organizational coaching. Your community is waiting, and they're ready to learn with you. Go to coachingfederation.org/coaching-in-organizations-inquiry to get started.
All right, we are here for our Season 5 review. And for those of you who have participated or listened in on these things, we hope you enjoy the time of talking about the last 12 episodes. We have our special facilitator and producer, JP. For those of you that don't know him, now you get to see him, what he really looks like in real life. We hear he's very tall as well. And Anyway, also don't forget to subscribe and like the channel. It certainly helps us with our, we don't have any paid advertisers, but we do actually encourage you to take a look at ICF, the CIO Coaching and Organizations. And JP, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. Again, welcome everyone to another episode of Leadership, the Secret Sauce. Today's episode, as you can see, is a little different. So instead of introducing another incredible guest, we're pressing pause to reflect on everything we've learned throughout Season 5. Across 12 conversations, we've heard from executive coaches and leaders and innovators. And while each guest brought a different and unique perspective, what struck me the most was how often they unknowingly built upon each other's ideas. So today, we'll revisit some of those moments and explore the themes that emerged across the season and hear what has stayed with our hosts, Dave and Matt, long after the microphones were turned off. So again, Matt, Dave, welcome back. How are you guys? How are your days going?
Are you asking the energy question that Dave normally asks, JP?
I am.
I don't know. Dave, what are you? I'm an 8.
You're an 8? Yeah, you know what? I'm saying I'm about an 8. What has you at an 8, Matt?
I don't know. I mean, I was obviously have our we're recording on a Monday.
Yes.
So yeah, had a little bit of a up and down morning, which has been okay. It's been different, just like normal things are. And I think, one, I don't want to sort of dip into my learnings, but I think there was one person that was really talking about maintaining this adaptable leadership. So that's what I'm practicing today. I believe that was Tom Epperson. So anyway, that's what has me at my 8.
Very cool. JP, what's your energy level? Don't let me take over the host role, JP. Yeah. I try to do that. I have a problem with that. So have me step back.
Oh yeah. Maybe I'll say I'm an 8 as well. It's a Monday. You mentioned we're recording on a Monday, different from our usual recording, which is a Friday. But yeah, I'm excited for the week to start. Excited for the work to come. Yeah. How about you, Dave? What has you at an 8?
Yeah. I am. Had a good weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Got outside. Got to do some chores around the house. Got to do some swimming. Got to walk with my dog Max. Life is good.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah. All right. So let's start with a simple question, I guess. When you first think back on Season 5, what's the first conversation or even the first moment that immediately comes to your mind?
Well, this was I overall, like, I reflecting back on things, a lot was about presence. And for me, the first moment that, like coaching presence, the first moment that stands out for me is one of my mentors, Mickey Connolly, talking about like the meeting place of humanity, and how important like being clear with your communication and presence is to like developing relationships.
You know what? I'll just go to the second episode because I can't get out of my mind some of Marsha's stories about how ICF was formed. I just think in terms of, wow, it's come a long way. I know we're going to have Magda on in season 6. I think that'll be really interesting. And even the gentleman from the European Mentoring and Coaching Council on the podcast. But it's amazing the story of even the organization, the certifying body for coaching, or at least one of the certifying bodies. And I don't want to say every review like, oh, that was our best list of coaches that we've really had, but it's really fascinating. I have like a list of them, and these are all really mature in their business and in how they approach coaching. And I find that to be really kind of fascinating because each one has their own story. And I think we were able to pull from them what that story happened to be. Maybe Dave and I, you and I are getting better at drawing out the coach story, their own sauce and things like that. So
I just to build on that, I do think that our blend of structure and adaptation to like what's needed in the moment, like for the client, does kind of reflect like the conversation, what we continue to talk to developing coaches around. Right, you need to have enough structure, but not so much that you don't go where the client wants to go. Mm-hmm. And then just to build off what you said, the Marsha conversation reminded me, anytime you're trying to create something, it feels awkward, right? It doesn't like what you see, like the created piece, it doesn't reflect the awkwardness and struggle it takes to create it. So that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah. As you mentioned, it's a blend of structure and discernment. So I wanted to ask, what does that balance look like in practice, and why is it so important, do you think, for effective coaching?
When I would just, one of the things that I kind of, as I was sort of taking my notes on the season, and I was just thinking, someone like Judith is really, she has a particular structure that she works from, even though, and she has like a huge client list. I think at one point in time, she said she was coaching up to 60 people at once without any type of structure to hang together. She would just be, she'd be all over the place. But she seemed to get it. And then there is like, and I go back, then I think of David in terms of, I think there's just a few clients, and he's someone who just does a lot of deep thinking and writing and focusing on his presence with each client that he's with. And then I go with Perry, maybe more of a mid career coach that's eager to bring in more clients all the time. I just find that to be like, it is an interesting balance. And then of course we had Nick, which is the first time we've ever had somebody on the podcast a second time. And he is just sort of like blossoming. Like he is just trying to figure out like, hey, this is what I am really doing. Versus when we started, like he had just left Samsung and just started on his own. And we were just really curious. Hey, it's been a year plus. Tell us what's happened. So anyway, those are some things that kind of come to mind in terms of each of the guests had a certain amount of structure that they work within, and some of them brand new structure. Like everything, is like a newly remodeled house. It's all new. And some of them are like, hey, look, someone like Mickey or Marcia, or even I would say Rosella, have had something in place for a while and are just slowly maturing to do the work that they really want to do.
Yeah, I really like that, Matt. And I think it is each of us and each of our guests has evolved in that structure, right? In their identity, like who they are. Some have been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years, right? And then others who are beginning and forming it, like it takes shape, it evolves. One of the things that Nick had talked about that really stood out for me, and it was great to see his evolution as being on the podcast a second time, is he said that he valued being a compass when clarity disappears, right? And I love that because as coaches, we have beliefs and we have values that we bring in to these coaching sessions, and without like hitting people over the head with what the right answer is, we can bring what our beliefs are and still be a valuable coach, right? As that evolves. Many of our guests are teachers of leadership as well. So it's just kind of an interesting combination of, having the right answer, but coaching people to have the space to get where they need to go within that.
Oh yeah, that's true. That actually brings up something I noticed as well across several guests this season, whether it was Judith, coaching dozens of leaders, or Heinrich adapting frameworks to the right person in front of him, or Marcia helping people discover their own insights. I think I observed like none of them seemed to be tied to a single method. So they all had structure, but they also knew when to like move beyond it. So I wanted to ask, do you think this mastery like comes from learning more frameworks, or from learning to trust yourself more?
Well, I would say, Marcia's secret sauce was coaching without thinking. And I think she sort of, coach the person, not the problem. If anybody hasn't read that book, that's a coach. I encourage you to read it. I think that a lot of these coaches would say there's an intuitive sense that they're bringing to the table in each of the conversations. I would actually point out to David Drake, who probably has honed the most intuitive sense in terms of his coaching conversations. Probably Mickey over the time. I don't know, Dave, you would whether you would say that, but I would say that David, his secret sauce, the sort of the profound stillness and radical insight, that is from a honed intuition. He is the type of coach that you would want to be around just because you're curious around what he would say from that stillness. May not be for everyone. It may make people, leaders, particularly leaders, super uncomfortable. But I think for the leader that is like, hey, no problem, that's what I'm really looking for, that's why I want him, then anyway, yeah, I would say he's got the intuition.
Yeah, I'm one of the things about that question makes me think of the order that coaches bring, the process, right? So like Mary Azzolini talked about sense, synthesize, sustain, right? Of like making sense of things, and then what is it? I think Parry talked about the hidden cost of pushing through, right? Of like getting to, and then Abhijit talked about like creating a safe place for discomfort, but also like radical self-honesty like is needed, right? So I'm fascinated with, there's an order where if you try to put too much structure early before you make sense of things, before you give space for discomfort, then you might not be as effective as a coach,
Hmm.
right? So I like the idea of very early on not overly shaping it. It actually reminds me previous seasons a little bit of Boyatzis, right? Around
Mm-hmm.
don't get to the goal too quickly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I also noticed that it happened throughout the season. The conversations we've had became, increasingly more human and less about the frameworks and more about the people. For example, Mary Azzolini talked about belonging as something people feel, not something organizations simply announce. And Rosella reminded us that we coach the human and not the role. So I wanted to ask, do you think leadership is becoming more human, or are organizations finally recognizing that people have always been the competitive advantage, especially now as we navigate the world of AI?
I don't know, JP. I don't know if organizations would recognize humans as really the competitive advantage. I think there's a lot of resources pointing towards AI, hoping that it will help reduce the dependence on, the uniquely human qualities. And I think there's a hope there, like that they can get more productivity out of a human. Um, and yeah, so I don't know. I don't know whether they actually sense that really it's about people, because that's a lot more complicated. And I think they're gonna see where this AI trend goes, and if they can possibly uh, maximize um, the effort with AI to get some value out of it as much as possible, and potentially reduce people's involvement. That's where I think now. Um, I don't know. I think there is going to be a knock-on effect to coaching in terms of a reduction of coaching inside the organization, or they'll use an AI bot or something like that, whether that's to assist or not. And I think it will it will drive the people that stay to deeper connection with the client, and the ability to meet the client where they need to be met, and provide what they need, what the leader really needs, I think. So, yeah, Dave, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm aligned with what you're saying. When I think of organizations, right? What do organizations want as outcomes? They want performance. They want efficiency, right? The highest performance for highest ROI, right? And then what do humans need? Like humans need a sense of belonging and connection, and right things that you get. The whole um, movement or challenging to the work from home versus work with a community. And why do people want to work in a community? Because I think what you get is that connection from working with humans that you don't necessarily get. I agree with Matt. I think more and more of the efficiency things that both management and coaches can do will probably be automated. So I believe as coaches, we need to adapt our own brand, like who we are, like the value we bring, but also leverage that like human connection that is not necessarily something an organization is going to ask of us, right? It's something that people need.
Hmm.
So it's a very interesting value proposition that it's getting me to think a lot about like how we position ourselves as human coaches.
I see. Yeah. So one of my favorite conversations this season was with Marsha Reynolds. I think she challenged the idea that coaching is about having the right answer. Instead, she reminded us that people change because of insight and not advice. And I think that same idea also resurfaced in Heinrich's conversation, where he talked about asking three layers of question instead of accepting the first answer, right? So his secret sauce wasn't having better solutions, but recognizing patterns other people couldn't see. I guess my question is, did this season change how you think about asking questions? Were there moments during the interviews where you found yourselves thinking, oh, that's a coaching question that I actually need to remember?
It didn't change anything for me other than there were times where I felt like I learned about the business side of coaching from these coaches. Whether that was like Rosella, who is based in Italy, Marsha, she basically turned us on to somebody that will be in season 6, Julius Ordonez. I think Heinrich, you had mentioned, he's actually in season 6, but that's sort of an interesting he asked further questions. So if you haven't listened to season 6, episode 2, that's Heinrich Stander. That's a really good one. I think each of them except for a few of them, had really worked on the business side and how they make a living being a coach. And I would even go except for a couple of rare cases, I think really only one that I would really say, oh, that person makes their living as a coach. Now they may have other pieces, but it really, from Judith, who does like platform-based coaching, to Mickey, who's been in it forever and a day, to Marsha, who is a book writer, as well as David, about coaching and developing coaches, or Lisa. I mean, those are really good. Yeah. When I look at someone like Lisa on social media, Lisa Ann Edwards, for those of you who don't know, she's episode 3 in season 5. She does a tremendous amount of work on LinkedIn in terms of really facilitating coach development or leader development with technology. That she asks really good questions as a coach, and she brings that sort of development. That's a really mature way of doing it. She's figured it out. To me, what I walked away from her with her episode was, here's someone who's really thought a lot about how she would go about making a living as a coach and making a living as a businesswoman, and what the customer really needs, and identified what that is. David Drake has written a tremendous amount, and probably may not be where he makes his living, but it's really something that he would say, hey, look, this is what I'm bringing to the community, to the offering, to the whatever it is, to the community of leadership. Anyway, yeah.
I think the David conversation stood out for me most with what Matt just said, which is, David said that he hesitated calling himself a coach because he felt like it was like that language limited what he could do, and that you need to be able to like abandon all the 6 months of training work that he did because a group that he was working with needed something else, right? And then the other thing that stood out for me with that conversation with David Drake is he said he created some bodies of knowledge to explain what he was trying to do, right? Like narrative coaching as an example. And it's so interesting where as coaches develop, we look at these bodies of knowledge or these approaches and assessments, right? And we say, how can we adapt ourselves to using the language of this and being an expert at this? And he took an approach where he had a way of thinking of adding value, and then he developed the way to explain it to his clients. So I love the way of like just asking people to like maybe change the way you're looking at things in terms of how you develop your expertise as a coach.
Yeah, all right. So I guess I also wanted to ask, after 12 conversations or many seasons as well, it almost feels like we've built a snapshot of what leadership is today. So if you had to choose one idea from the season that leaders need to pay attention to over the next 5 years, what do you think this idea is?
That they really need to pay attention to. Well, I would actually go to Mickey Conley's episode. And I would say where he said, there is a power in the language between people that is your competitive advantage. Really, how I relate to another person. As a coach, that's what I'm selling, or that's what I'm offering. And so work really hard at the relationship. It's a little bit of Richard Boyatzis, but kind of a continuation with Mickey Conley. And I would say like, hey, here's somebody who's been doing it a long time and recognizes that something happens when you and I either sit across the table or sitting across between cameras that happens and allows my leadership to shift, to be more available to a person, or to really sort of understand that person sitting across from me, or to help ask questions that remove thinking that helps them deliver, or helps them do, or helps them be, most importantly, be different. And it's probably more genuinely human. And that's probably what if there was one episode, that's probably the one thing that I would go back to. Is my biggest takeaway from Mickey was it's all about the relationship between me and the client, or between human beings. And if I'm going to invest somewhere, it's going to be in human beings.
Yeah, it's such an important focus on human being, especially in this age of AI, right? And for me, like I have a theme that kind of runs across that, which is coaches noticing more and being able, like, not noticing more. And I believe in the relationship between like what people say, what they want, like what they need. Like there's a little bit of an accountability thing. Lisa Ann Edwards said, empathy alone is not enough, right, to lead. So I think to coach, you can empathize, but you do need to be able to notice, what do clients need to be accountable to for themselves to like move forward. And you have to be able to like listen for language, listen for the somatics, listen for the deeper things that people are sharing, and then be willing to balance out safety with challenge, right? Of you can't be afraid as a coach to be able to challenge your clients so that they can be more accountable to where they want to go. So that's kind of the thing that stands out for me.
I see. Yeah. All right. So throughout the season as well, our guests, gave us their time and their stories, and often some incredibly personal reflections. So it makes me wonder whether these conversations gave something back to them as well. I guess my question is, what do you hope our guests experienced by being a part of Leadership, the Secret Sauce?
Well, I would say my first hope is that their story is unique, and that's why we're asking them to tell it. And we don't want anybody else's story but their own. And we are not looking for a sales pitch. We are not looking for canned answers. We really want the genuine article of the human being to tell us, like their own journey as to how they got there. And know that it's not complete, but that sometimes the trials that they experienced or the insights that they had along the way are really what make up them as a coach and what makes them unique as a coach. And to not, I would say the idea of like, hey, I'm not this, like as if there is a this that they have to be. I don't have this, as if there is something that they have to have in order to be a coach. And I think it's good. It's a good, like open question. I think even in season 6, we're going to have people that may have been doing coaching for longer or different or in different ways. So we want to know their own unique story. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create an opportunity where a coach can tell their story about how they became a coach, and knowing that that's their own way, their own sort of unique brand that they're offering. And so that's my hope.
I too have that same hope for people to be able to share their story. And I do hope that our guests had fun, right? They came into kind of a playful atmosphere and they enjoyed the conversation. And also, like, in sharing that story, is we're talking to the coaches that worked through their story so that they could be a coach. There are so many listeners out there that are working on their journey, right? And they have enough to be a good coach. They can be the heroes of their story. And I love that our guests come on and share the real struggles, because we are all at some point like victims to different things, circumstances, good clients, bad clients, organizations. So that realness of that, like, I hope that they feel comfortable, and we got that out of sharing the real struggles. And then also the space where you can become the hero of your story.
All right. Speaking of listeners, this is one of my last few questions. If someone was discovering our podcast, Leadership, the Secret Sauce, for the very first time, which episodes from this season would you tell them to start with, and why?
Well, how about this? If they're a new business, I would suggest they listen to Judith, because sometimes platform coaching is an option. Being on your own would be, it'd be a good episode to listen to Nick, because his first episode was, he was a brand new coach, and now he's been doing it for a little while, and what he's learned. I think from what else fills your portfolio, I would suggest you listen to like Lisa Ann Edwards and Mary Azzolini, in terms of Mary on the change management, Lisa Ann from just a business, like trying to figure out what that looks like, and sort of on the technology side and kind of looking at that. Those are the things. Buzz, from a brand new, freshly minted coach with years of personal experience and how he brings that to the table, I think that's also really good. So if I were to balance it out, that's probably where I would say. If you want to hear history on coaching, listen to Mickey and Marcia.
Yeah, I really like. I'm building on what Matt said. And just adding in, and if you want to like expand the way you think about coaching, like some of the thinkers in the field, like David Drake, and I would add Mickey, right? Changing perspectives of how you're thinking. Abhijit also, right? Just different ways of looking at things to kind of help expand your thinking. And what I'd like to say, I want to encourage folks to, listen to a few minutes of each to just see what voice resonates with you, right? Like one of the things I love is I love for our coaches to introduce themselves because there's a spark that happens in human conversation where you just feel connected with people when they first say that. And so I would encourage people to kind of scan and then listen to all the episodes, but see which ones resonate with you and give you that spark.
Definitely, yes. All right. So I guess my last question would be, after hearing 12 extraordinary guests, what conversations do you think are still missing? Or are there any questions do you want our season 6 to answer?
Well, I would just say in season 6, we have Michael Bungay-Stanier coming in, as well as Magda Mook. And the gentleman, I can't remember his first name, from EMCC. Feel remiss in figuring out that. I think there is something from a bigger, like the big world of coaching that that would be interesting to personalize and see a little bit more around how the sausage is made. Because I think that opens up your eyes to like, okay, there's a bunch of different people making a living doing coaching in various ways. And it doesn't all have to be one way. Like it just doesn't, it doesn't have to look a certain way. I think we shared that from this, but I think the business of coaching was probably what the conversation that we could continue to have. What does the business of coaching look like, and how is it changing? Because I think last season, season 4, we would have said, or season 3, wow, it's still around a lot of platform-based coaching. I think that's changed a lot. I think AI has had a shift on the coaching world and thinned out the ranks a little bit more than we were like the last season. So that's the kind of the thing. Okay, now that the ranks are thinned out, what do we have that's left? Who's sticking around? And I think, I don't know if he's going to be on this season, but my mentor coach at International Coach Education, Tamor Mori, has done some research on what causes coaches to leave the practice. And I think there's some insight into that. I think that's eye-opening for the coaches and the leaders that listen, because I think as we're trying to capture the community of coaches and what coaches have to say and what's their story, we want to know the ones that have left the coach community, why they left, because there's a story there.
Yeah, you got me thinking, Matt. Like, what sustains us as coaches, what elevates us as coaches, what differentiates us as coaches, right? And I think, one of the areas I'm very interested in is, how we continue to professionalize the field, right? We're looking at the competency bodies of the certification bodies, out there. And I believe that, we have to both continue to professionalize and differentiate ourselves, right? And at the same time, create enough space to include a lot of different approaches, right? So one of the areas I'm very interested in is like, there seems to be a convergence of different kinds of coaching that's occurring in the field, like a convergence of well-being coaching, right? Along with leadership coaching, right? And what does that look like? And different organizations are getting into things and calling it different things that might not be as clear to the clients and is not as clear to the people that are developing and moving into coaching as well. It's not it's clarity that we can create, but I think it's opportunity for conversation of kind of helping people navigate what these things are for them, so that they could generate value in it.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Any final words for our listeners as we close out this episode?
No, as always, thank you, JP, for doing the producing of the podcast. You're the one who makes it what it is. I would just say for season 6, we have some other new developments inside of the podcast that we're trying to. Dave and I will be speaking at the ICF Converge 2026 in Washington, D.C. at the end of October, and we are speaking on what leaders really want from coaches. Now, I think the tentative plan that we have is to actually interview some of those leaders on the podcast. So we are going to hear from leaders what they really want from coaches. So if you listen to this and you've listened all the way and you're like, I know some leaders, they need to be senior director and above level leaders that we are looking to interview a handful and figure out what they want, what they really want from coaches. We have some ideas and we want to hear what they have to say before we get to our October session. It's Thursday at 9 a.m. I looked at there, so we're right up front on the conference towards the front of the day on Thursday, and we know you won't want to miss it. So.
All right. Dave, Matt, thank you again for another fantastic season. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us throughout these conversations. If there was a guest who resonated with you this season, would love to hear it. So leave us a comment, share your favorite episode with another coach or leader, and don't forget to subscribe as we head into season 6. All right. So until next time, thank you guys.
Thanks for listening. If you love this podcast, please share it with another coach or leader. Make sure you go to the show notes to get all the resources from today's episode.